So when they were doing work in this room, they actually found the bones of a young boy. And what's even more spooky is that when they had some ghost hunters come and visit this castle, they actually said they felt the presence of a small boy without knowing that they'd actually found the bones. That's a little bit spooky.
Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's be free.
We are Marianne and Chris, and we have been travelling since May 2018. After 6 months of preparing ourselves and our 15-year-old camper van called Trudy, we set off on the 4th of January 2020 to attempt to drive her and ourselves all the way around the world.
We're leaving the parking spot near Portofino and we're heading inland up to the mountain village of Bardi, which is where Annie's auntie lives. Annie's mum's best friend. Yes. Adopted auntie. Actually, the side road that we turned down where we were waiting behind the van, they had a weight restriction of no more than 1.5 tons. So we had to turn around and come back out of there, and that's one of the issues driving around with the sat nav is it tells you whether you put it on the fastest route, the shortest route, or which one. Obviously, you go down some roads and then suddenly you hit either a height barrier or a weight restriction, which we've had quite a few times now.
We did actually see at the motorhome show they sell sat navs and things that have you can put in your height and your weight and everything, and it guides you.
But we don't have one of those. It's far more entertaining when you haven't got one.
In fact, Chris said, why didn't they put up a warning sign before you got into that road?
Yeah.
And I said they probably had one, but the shopkeeper who was laughing at us probably took it down because it was more entertaining.
Probably. So Bardi, where we're heading, is up in the mountains, and we've just left the coastal road and we're coming inland, and the hills are starting to begin. So we've got another just under 2 hours drive through the mountains.
I've just seen another sign.
Just seen another sign for what?
3.5 tons, but nothing no wider than 2 meters.
Oh, that's okay. We're 3.5 tons and 2 meters wide. We should fit. We were just saying that we're pleased we're driving on the right hand side, on the inside, and not on the outside of this road, because most of the road doesn't have any barriers and it's got a very large drop, and Marianne's not the best with heights even on good days. Just when we were happy to be on the inside, we've now gone onto the outside. Near the drop.
Near the drop.
That looks like that.
And there's a van coming, so I'm letting everybody go past.
So it feels like we've been climbing since we left the coastline. In fact, we have, probably for about half an hour now. We're 1,000 meters up, and there's actually icicles by the side of the road, so it must be quite chilly outside. Good morning. So this morning we are off to see a local cheese factory. We've arrived yesterday near the town of Bardi. The sun is beautifully shining down on us again today, as it always does. And yeah, we're at Annabelle's adopted auntie's house, Sylvia.
Auntie Sylvia.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
We're going to see how Parmesan cheese is made.
There you go. Buongiorno.
Ciao, buongiorno.
So probably, as you expect, the first thing you see when you come to a cheese factory is loads of beautiful cows. So nice to see the cows in the field, the young calves behind me, with the beautiful white-topped mountains in the distance. And how lucky are we with this weather? Again, definitely shining down on us. Okay, so now we're going to the factory to see how the cheese is actually made. And I love Parmesan.
Anybody who loves Parmesan cheese needs to sit up and take note, because we've arrived at a Parmesanio farm, and I'm going to give you a very quick rundown of how it happens. The fresh milk is actually brought in the morning. It comes into these large metal trays, and at this point the milk and the cream is actually split up. The cream goes off to be made into butter. They don't do that here. So from the metal trays, they come into these beautiful big copper vats where they're cooked.
The paddle goes in, it slowly works around, lifts it slowly. He doesn't even look at the vat. Then they lift it up into a kind of muslin material that then gets strapped to a bar. It then just sits there for a while, probably about 4 or 5 minutes, just draining softly and gently. He then goes in with a knife, cuts the cheeses into 2, and then puts each of those 2 pieces into a cradle. It's like a fine art. These men have been doing it for years. They know what they're doing, and the way they handle the cheese is just perfection. The remaining liquid gets sucked out, so it's just the cheese formation left in the vat.
And from there, they're taken into a fridge room where they actually start to take form.
So the big rolls of cheese are left on the table for 2 days. They're then placed in the salt baths.
And there are masses of big baths, like giant baths, which are filled with water and salt to create that brine. After that, they're taken out and they're wrapped in a silver mesh-like form with, again, some more tension ropes, and this is so that all the moisture can come out and it still holds its form. Once it's solidified and everything's completely settled, they're then moved on to drying racks. After they've been held in the drying racks, they come into the storage room. In fact, this is called the oh my god room, because as you walk in, you are blown away by the enormous quantity and the absolute magnitude of these cheeses. They are stored, I don't know, 20 or 30 high on huge racks. And in fact, I've actually asked Chris to stand in between the cheese racks to give you some kind of perspective. And some of these cheeses will go for 2,500 euros. We've been greeted by Tino Brunioni, and he is actually one of the owners. And Parma is Parmigiano, which is the Parmesan cheese, and it's only made in this region. We're here with Tino, and he's invited us in for a coffee, and he's going to tell us more about the cheese. But I thought I'd sit here and tell you about the cheese, because look at this.
This is his produce.
Il 2 anni ha una presenza di cristalli di tirosina.
So Tino was just explaining to us the difference in the two types of cheeses. So this one is actually 2 years old, and you can tell that it's a smooth texture. And then 1 year later, the 3-year-old one, you can see the texture is a lot more bumpy due to the amino acids. And apparently the flavour between the 2 years and the 3 years is significantly different. So we're really lucky that we're going to be able to try both the 2-year and the 3-year to compare the flavours. So the texture of the 3-year-old cheese, when you break it, is much drier and not so flexible as the 2-year-old cheese. Well, it's delicious. And apparently the cheese makers have a refined nose, a bit like a sommelier with wine, where they actually can pick out all the different smells. My nose is not as refined as Timo's.
I'm going to try these two different cheeses. There is the 2-year-old and the 3-year-old, and just feeling them, they feel differently. This one is definitely a little bit more moist and breaks more easily. I'm a real mouse actually, and I love cheese. There's a real sweetness to this cheese. He was saying earlier that actually the embodiment of the what the cow eats out in the grasses with the sweet flowers and the environment that they grow up in, it actually comes through, and it's absolutely delicious. It's so sweet and almost fruity. This one is a little bit drier. Do you know, I'm obviously not a cheese connoisseur, but I feel like I'm almost drinking almost like a wine. It's very fruity, it's very rich, it's in very intense flavour, but it's very gentle, it's very smooth. It's not sort of like a hard-hitting, mean, sort of offensive cheese. It's really soft. This is absolutely beautiful. This is something, you know, when you buy your finest Parmigiano in the supermarkets, you go to the deli, this is off the scale.
So we've driven up into the hills surrounding Bardi, and you can actually see behind me, that's Sylvia's B&B. That's where we're staying at the moment. Beautiful views over the mountains. And it's so quiet here in the winter, but apparently in the summer it gets really, really busy with tourists driving through. And I'm sure it's very isolated when it snows in the winter. But lucky for us, the weather is good at the moment. There is no snow apart from right on tops of the mountains that you can see in the background. And all is good. What a beautiful day.
Right, we're here in Casa Bezia, and that means the house of the bees. And Auntie Sylvia, who is Annabelle's auntie, is actually the owner of a bed and breakfast, which also does art groups.
I organise art activity holidays. We have a cooking demo, we go to a local cheese factory.
Oh yes, we did that this morning.
Wonderful, very full-on week. The tutor brings a group from England, so if there's anybody out there who would like to spend a week in Italy, you're very welcome.
Yeah, and it's a really beautiful location. We're actually up in the mountains in Bardi, which is the region of Parma, where you get the ham and the Parmesan cheese.
We're just above Tuscany, not far from Tuscany.
Yeah,
and
lovely.
We have a beautiful castle, famous castle. We have a lovely river location.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that tomorrow actually. We're going to go up to the castle and we'll be able to show you some more.
This morning we've woken up. It's our last day in the town of Bardi, and this morning we have arranged to go and see Bardi Castle. So we're going to have a guided tour of the castle, which looks absolutely amazing, before we carry on our journey across Italy.
We've just arrived at this beautiful, beautiful property, and our guide, Angelina.
Thank
She was actually born in Cardiff and her mum lives in Telford in Oakengates. So hi mum, because obviously we're from Telford. So that's so cool. We're just like, it's always great to see all these coincidences. So that's lovely. It was originally built in the 9th century and it's been added onto and restored through the centuries. We're just going through the first part, which is the fortification. I've just learned that this building, this structure was actually a fortress originally, and then it became a fortified castle through the ages. And walking through here, you can actually imagine where the initial front line soldiers would have been, peering through the slits of these walls and firing arrows to protect the people. There's a theory that goes around why this town is called Bardi, and you're going to have to excuse my accent, but the first theory and the most probable is that the Longobards were warriors that came down from northern Italy and they took the Bard bit at the end and it became Bardi. Sorry about the accent. The second theory is that Hannibal came up through Italy marching through Rome and his elephant was called Barus. So there is that theory as well, but it's probably the first one.
So we've come through to the back of the castle, and the view behind us is absolutely stunning. And of course it's helped by this beautiful blue sky that we've got today. And there is actually a tunnel that was built as an escape tunnel, which starts from here and goes all the way down to the river that you can see behind us. But it's collapsed over the years, so you can't go down it, but it is, you can still see the entrance of the tunnel here.
The difference, in fact, as we're walking around, this is obviously the fortified area where they would have protected and actually stood as soldiers to protect the area. So this is the fortification area. And then just behind us up here, there's the castle area, which would have been a little village, a little area where people would have lived within that fortification. So when you arrive up to the main entrance of the castle, you can see where the drawbridge would have been. And it's just been explained to us, which is so logical. Being up in the mountains, there wouldn't have been a moat all the way around because the water was way down below. So instead there would have been some kind of wooden skewer arrangement so that if anybody tried to get over, they would have fallen to their peril. These phenomenal wooden doors would have been the last defence before they broke in. There are murder holes above where they would have poured resin and sap and hot water through, and then they've actually got these metal pieces here to protect the wood from any kind of axe invasion, that kind of defence. As we've said in videos before, it's really important to actually pay and get a guide when you visit some of these historical places, because the amount of information that we're given is phenomenal. It's so important to really understand. So we're just being shown around, and obviously as you come through the fortification into the castle, you see how they would have arranged their living, and we're going into the ice room now. We're in the fridge area, and actually you can see a chute through at the back of the room which comes directly from the parade ground up above us, which is directly above us. And what they would do in winter is they would actually throw the snow down the chute. As the snow comes down the chute at the back of this room, they would have compacted it, and that would have created large blocks of ice, and surrounded with the hay, that would have kept it frozen all through the summer. So they had the freezer at the back of the room, and then at the front of the entrance area they would have had the fridge and the pantry area because it would have been slightly warmer. The next area that you arrive in, the next rooms, are this beautiful wine room where they would have kept in this cool conditions the wine for all the soldiers and the people. And just next door is the stable area where they would have marched the horses up through and into this area. Hence the bales of straw and the water trough bale area at the end.
So we've come to this this platform area here, which would have been a defence area, and the soldiers would have slept here. And in those days, there wouldn't have been these bars, and you can see the drop below us. You wouldn't want to sleep on the job with that drop. Beautiful views.
The way the castle has been laid out is incredibly sympathetically done. They've created these rooms and these areas so that the visitor is able to really grasp how they would have lived in those times. So although some of the objects are replicas or something a little bit more modern than that would have been in the times, they've laid it out so you would have got a real feel, an impression of how they would have lived at that times. Seeing the bread ovens, seeing the tables laid out, seeing all the shelving and explaining how they would have worked the system of the people that were living here at the time, whether it be the soldiers, whether it would have been the families that then bought the houses in and the castle in the future. It's very sympathetically done. So any force taking over a land has to find a way to control the people. The Landys took over this land in 1257.
So we've come into the torture chamber, and this is a real boys' room. Check this out. So if you misbehaved, they would put you in this cage and hang you on the outside of the wall of the castle, and they would just leave you there to the elements. Over in the corner here, we have a torture chair. So if you're a witch, you'd be put in this chair. They may even light a fire under it. Not good. And then over on this side here, this contraption here would be used to dislocate your shoulders. So when they were doing work in this room, they actually found the bones of a young boy. And what's even more spooky is that when they had some ghost hunters come and visit this castle, they actually said they felt the presence of a small boy without knowing that they'd actually found the bones. That's a little bit spooky.
The castle has a tragedy. Morello and Celeste, they were two lovers. She was the daughter of the lord of the castle, and he was the captain, the commander of the troops. And he went off to battle. And when a troop of soldiers came back to the castle and she saw that it wasn't him, she thought he had failed in battle, and the loss of her true love, even though she wasn't supposed to love him because he wasn't of the right class of royalty, she couldn't take that pain. She was heartbroken and threw herself off the top of the tower. And then obviously when he came back from battle, because he wasn't actually beaten, and learned of the news, he too was heartbroken and threw himself off the tower. And that's why people come here on ghost hunting trips, because sometimes people believe that they feel they feel something, they hear footsteps. And that's why they have a picture here in this part of the tower, which is an image that was taken with special thermal cameras, and they believe that it's him that is still trapped here because of his broken heart.
That's a bit of a walk. We've come up to the highest point of the castle, and this is actually the height where they threw themselves off. It's very high.
We're in Bardi. We have just done the most fabulous tour. Thank you so much for having us, Bardi Castle. And now we're in the square at the front. It's a Thursday. This is the day to come to Bardi if you want to come to an authentic Italian market. They're just finished for the day and they're just starting to close up, but we're going to sneak in and see if we can get something to eat for lunch. We have just found this lovely little shop called Panetteria Pescaseria. Sorry, I know I'm killing Italian, but I have just bought some real locally made focaccia and some other delicacies. I'm not exactly sure what they are, so comments below. But we're gonna go back to Trudy and try them out.
So we've come back to the van. We've said goodbye to Annie. She's heading off to the airport, and we've come back for a little bit of lunch before we head off. And we've got a nice little selection. We've got some focaccia, we've got a little bit of pizza, and some, I think is spinach or herb tart. And then we've got a few little sweet pastries to try afterwards.
Yeah, we really are going to miss Annie. She was phenomenal as a guest in Trudy. But fear not those who have fallen in love with Annabelle, as there are a few. She's coming back to probably join us when we get further into our journey. So fingers crossed we'll see you again soon.
In fact, she was on our original videos when we visited Malaysia.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So yeah, Annie's used to travelling with us.
Yeah. We've realised that this is the pastry with like a cheese spread and cabbage on top, and you can eat it cold or hot. And Sylvia was telling us about this pastry, so and it's a local one, so I was really hoping to find it, and this is it. Yay!
It's delicious.
Comments below for the real name though, I can't remember.
It's really good. Doesn't taste cabbagey actually, tastes more spinachy, herby. Join us on the next episode as we head over the mountains, find some very narrow roads, discover snow, and head into a monastery. We meet new friends, try Italian food, and explore the town of Pavia.
Diary cam. Oh my god, I'm trying to be brave, but it's really hard.
Buongiorno.
Oh my god, I can't get out. I can't get out.
I need the.
I need to get out.
She's stuck. Help her, Annie. She's stuck.
But then the milk comes down here. Whoops, Marion walked into something. Bloopers, cut.
No. Oh, Chris, it's because you got stupid in on
I haven't adjusted anything. Okay, the other side. Come out the other side.
That seat doesn't move.
So with the 2-year-old Cheech.
I can't get out.
Get out the other side.
Oh,
You're
I
in
feel
the
like a
bloopers
beached
now.
whale.
So the 2-year-old cheese. I can't say it.
Sorry about the accent. I'm killing the Italian.
We have it all.